What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training. Today we're going to be breaking down 5 things that you see in Division I wide receivers, okay? So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the football IQ of a Division I wide receiver and how those guys kind of separate themselves from the rest of the receivers that are especially coming out of high school, the ones that are in college at the lower divisions, is that they understand how to structure their routes and they understand how to attack leverage and all of those things. And then secondly, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest mistakes that you see wide receivers make at the Division I level that kind of prevents them from being that elite top-tier wide receiver. Okay, so I hope this helps you out. So first clip we're looking at here is this post out route. So the main thing I want to understand here is that this receiver understands the principle of leverage and how to run this route. So he's got an inside shade off man coverage DB. Now again, so many young wide receivers, they're preventing themselves from taking that jump to the next level, preventing themselves from improving their skills because they simply just don't know when to use certain movements, right? So that's one of the things that I try to pride myself on explaining to you guys is that I want to teach you how and when to use it, not just how to use it, not just the technique behind it, but I want to teach you when to use this specific move. So again, we have an inside leverage off man coverage DB. At the next level, you're going to have to understand this, that he's running a post out route, right? Double move, but he's got to make that first move look like a full-blown post. How would you run a post against an inside shade off man coverage DB? You'd split him in half. You'd attack the outside shoulder because when you attack the outside shoulder, you're trying to force a hip turn so we could slip back underneath, right? A novice receiver would just break this thing off right in front of him, try to run at him, then break it to the post out. It's a little bit longer developing. They're anxious to get out of it, and this DB will be all over it. So we have to understand the principles of attacking leverage. We have to understand where I should angle my stem to get that DB to move. So that's exactly what he does. And you see he attacks him. He gets that hip turn because he's selling vertical, simply by having his eyes forward, simply by committing his shoulders and his hips, staying in stride. That's how you apply all those things that we talk about. We talk about it on this channel all the time, like, hey, you want to sell vertical, right? You got to stay in stride. You got to commit to it. But when do I actually use that? These are the situations to use that to get that DB to flip his hips. So the first thing that you see in Division I wide receivers is a heightened football IQ. They understand how to attack specific coverages because they've been coached to do so, okay? So now we're going to play this full speed, then we're going to get into one of the biggest mistakes that you see with wide receivers at the next level, okay? So great job attacking the outside shoulder, great job forcing that hip turn, and then obviously breaking this thing off on a post out. Now, before we get into one of those mistakes, fellas, I want to talk to you about what we were doing this offseason. We were traveling to 9 different states, 9 different cities, I should say, for a 2-day-long quarterback wide receiver training camp. We're coming to Tampa, Florida first. That's in a month from today. We're going to Houston, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Newark, New Jersey, Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, and Los Angeles, California. Guys, we're really excited to get out to these 9 different locations. Spots are going to be limited because of the interest we are getting in these camps. We don't want to have camps where we're having 100, 200 different kids out there. We're only limiting to 50 spots, 10 per position group per age. So again, it's going to be small group training, a lot of one-on-one instruction for 2 days, fellas. It's going to be 8 hours of training. We're going to have DBs out there for one-on-ones, 7-on-7, half-line drills, and obviously you guys are going to get a lot better. So if you guys want to come out to one of our locations, great opportunity for you guys to work with myself along with the other coaching staff that I will be bringing along. We'll be bringing along my speed coach. We'll have a live photographer out there for you guys to get photos and video of yourself. So check out that very first link below if you guys are local to one of these areas, want to come out and sign up for our camps. We'd love to have you out there. Let's get back to this video. Okay, so now one of the biggest mistakes that you see wide receivers make at the Division I level is they do not focus on the detail of their routes. So this is something that you see. This is the second thing that you'll see in Division I wide receivers is that they will not commit to their breaks. So let's watch this thing here. So again, this is very similar to the route we just talked about, right? So this is a post route versus inside shade off man coverage. Now, a lot of times, if you're a wide receiver and you get to that Division I level, sometimes you see those guys that are in high school who just are better than everybody else physically. They're faster, they're bigger, they're stronger, and they get away with it, right? Maybe you're playing a lower level of high school ball. And again, I don't necessarily think that's bad if you're playing a lower level of high school ball. It's just, that's just the school that you end up going to. College coaches will be able to tell based on your film if you're good enough. They're some of the best in the world at what they do. It's not about going to that biggest school. It's about going to where you're going to get film and where you're going to actually play so you could showcase those skills, right? Because you might sit on the bench for 3 years at a big-time school, not get any film, but if you would have played at a smaller school and get the film, then you would have showed out. But sometimes you get those guys who are just better athletes, right? But when you get to that next level, everybody else becomes a better athlete too. So the details of your routes, the details of what you do matter 100% of the time. So this is a wide receiver out of college, and he's running this post. So we already know inside shade DB, I have to run a post route. We just talked about it. I want to attack that outside outside shoulder. I want to try to get him to flip those hips so I could slip back underneath and run this post. So what this receiver does, he does a good job attacking. He's doing the right thing. He's selling vertical. And what does he start to do? He starts to round it with his shoulders and with his hips. And that is one of the worst things that you could do on this type of post route. Because again, what's that DB supposed to be looking at in man? He's supposed to be looking at that upper body. And when you get to that next level, you're facing those Division I DBs. This is why so many receivers struggle at the next level with their route running. And you notice a huge difference is that they're not focused on the details. And those receivers are better, those DBs are better coached. They're going to understand how to watch your hips. They're going to understand what to look for on a specific route because they're just as good as you are, just as fast as you are. So when you start to round your body like this before you make the cut, that takes away explosion, so you're not going to have as much acceleration. But look at this DB. He's playing this thing completely on this. He's playing this route completely simply because we rounded into it. We have to make sure, fellas, that the details are important. So the second thing that you see in Division I wide receivers that is a huge mistake is that they take their athleticism or they take the route running for granted because they're good athletes, but everybody at that next level is a good athlete. So we have to make sure that we focus on those details of the position. Okay, let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. So make sure, fellas, we commit to the last possible second on the fade. I'm not rounding it. I'm not slowing down to give that DB an indicator. Okay, great idea with the route, correct stem, but we just rounded it a little bit too soon. Okay, so now third thing that you see in Division I wide receivers is that their ability to drop and get in and out of breaks in the least amount of time spent possible. Okay, so now let's watch the thing full speed. So they've interviewed, I believe, Nick Saban, and they've interviewed Dabo Swinney, two of the schools with some of the best wide receivers, obviously, right? Maybe not Clemson in this past couple years, but they've had some guys that's had a lot of talent come out of there, and especially Bama, right? Best receivers always come out of Alabama. Now, what do they look for? And they've been interviewed, and they say all the time, we're looking for smoothness in and out of breaks. So what does that actually mean? How do we understand that? Because that can mean a lot of different things. It's kind of a broad generalization of route running. And that means that you're able to drop violently into your break, and you're able to have explosion out of the break. So whether it's a curl route, comeback route, whip route like we're looking at right here, that break point has one thing in common. You have an explosive drop of your hips. You're being violent with your hips, and that violent drop, that explosive drop gives you that explosion and gives you that acceleration to shoot out of this route. So you see when we're breaking into this whip route here, again, it all comes down to the same things that we were talking about at the very beginning. Selling fade. Eyes are there. In this case, it's selling slant, but if it were like a comeback, it'd be selling fade. Selling slant. Eyes are there. Hips and shoulders are committed. We're in full stride. All those things draw that DB in. It sells fade, sells slant, sells whatever route you're trying to sell. And then the only way that you change direction is by being violent with your hips. So if you don't have this violent hip drop, that's something that I suggest you work on, because at the next level, you're going to have to be able to do this against those talented DBs like we were just talking about in the last clip. We have to be violent. Now, when you drop to this violent position, the goal is to be able to create energy. The goal is to accelerate and widen the distance with the DB. Can you get separation? Okay, but can you keep separation? And getting separation comes from the violent hip drop. But again, they talk about smoothness in and smoothness out. So you have to focus on having those specific steps. So on this whip route, something that I would teach to get that smooth break is like you drop on the inside foot, you're trying to hook your outside foot all the way around to where your hips and shoulders are parallel to the target, because now you're in an explosive position because of that hip drop. And now because you've paid attention to the details and getting that smoothness out of the break by hooking that foot around, now I can just drive off of that foot, push off of that leg, get to that positive shin angle right there, and accelerate out of the break. That energy was created with my hip drop, and because of my foot placement, because of my attention to detail, that gave me the smoothness out of the break. So again, it all comes down to details, fellas. It all comes down to those little things that you're trying to focus on, that you're trying to implement to your game, because the little things are not little. The little things matter 100% of the time. So that's what we have to focus on. That's a great route there by this receiver. So again, third thing that you see in Division I wide receivers is smoothness into the break and then smoothness out of the break. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Great job setting him up, selling slant, being violent, and then shooting back to that ball. Great route there overall. Okay, so now, fourth thing that you see from wide receivers at the Division I level is their ability to beat press. Okay, so let's watch the thing full speed. So again, we got an explosive jam. This wide receiver is able to shed that jam, shed the physicality of the DB, and then make this play downfield on this post. So let's talk about it, right? So again, maybe in high school, you're not that team who sees a whole lot of press coverage, right? Maybe you're not the team you see zone all the time. Not the most talented DBs. But when you get to that next level, they're going to expect you to get off of press. And again, I know a lot of people say it, especially in the comments, they'll say oh, well, I don't see a lot of press coverage, coach, I don't need to worry about that. You do need to worry about it, because if you have any goals and aspirations of playing at the next level, you're going to see press coverage. Guess what? Because the DBs are more talented, like we were talking about. So you have to be able to get off a press. So this like physical jam right here, this is something that you're going to see. You're going to see DBs who are going to want to get hands on you. They're going to want to get physical. So we have to make sure I have a plan for that off the line. This receiver is able to get off of it because of his great pad level. Again, he doesn't do the step back release. He doesn't do the slide release with the 50 different moves. And again, that's fine in the right situation. But in this case, he's got to get up into this route because he's got a post route. I can't take forever on a post route. So he makes sure that we have a good base. When I'm facing these physical DBs, I have a good pad level. I'm ready to shed through, because when that DB lunges at me, guess what? He loses his base. So we just got to make sure that I'm in that explosive position. I can rip underneath and get back to this route. So we got to make sure, fourth thing that you see in Division I wide receivers at that next level is their ability to beat press. Whether that's by having a great release, or that's by being real sudden with your movement, setting DBs up, making your releases look the same, or being able to get off a physical jam with your pad level like so. That's what you have to be able to do to play at that next level. Make sure that we are ready for press coverage. You should be working press coverage every single time that you touch the field. So when a DB does press you, we want press. That means that we have an opportunity to get a one-on-one matchup where if I get 2 steps on the DB, I'm wide ass open and that quarterback can throw me the ball. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Great job shedding that hand, getting back over the top, and then running this post route. So fourth thing that you look for in Division I wide receivers is that they can beat press. Okay, so now, last thing that I want to talk about here is the fifth thing that you see in wide receivers is that they understand how to attack leverage. Okay, so the very first thing we talked about in this video was having a high football IQ, being able to understand, leverage, understand why a DB's at a certain place. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here. They understand, Division I wide receivers understand why. They understand the opposite side of the ball. They understand what a DB is trying to accomplish. Okay, so this is a rider from Garrett Wilson. We have an inside shade DB like so, and he has to run a fade route. So what does he do here? He attacks his leverage, gives him a move inside, and then he's got all this space to fade out for that quarterback to lead him outside. So let's talk about it. So when we have an inside shade DB, those receivers at the next level, they understand what his responsibility is. So if I have an inside shade DB like so, what's his goal? His goal is to force me outside. So you knew on that post route, right? When we had to run that post route, we were talking about the very beginning. When he's inside shade and I have to run a post route, where do I want to attack? I want to attack the outside shoulder because I'm trying to get him to flip his hips so I could slip back underneath. Now, because he's inside shade and I have an outside breaking route, a lot of wide receivers that are novice in the high school level will just take off to the outside. Oh, I got him beat. And that's exactly what that DB wants you to do. He's going to get right into your hip, force you to that sideline, and you're not going to get any space. So what do you think we have to do? We have to threaten him where he doesn't want me to go on an outside breaking route, whether it's an out route, whether it's a fade route like so. So what he does is he attacks his leverage. He squares him up. And guess what that DB is going to do? He's going to keep his leverage because he's been taught if you're going to be inside shade, you better not give up the inside. And now when we attack his leverage and we move him off the platform, I'm creating all this space for my quarterback, and I'm closer to this DB so I can get a better angle. And all that quarterback has to do is lead me. So those receivers at the next level, fellas, they understand that principle. They understand what it takes to be able to beat that DB who's in off coverage, press coverage, zone coverage. They understand why they're playing a certain way. You have to know the reason why to play at that next level. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Great job attacking his leverage, hitting him with that move, keeping that head down, and then accelerating back to win that ball over the top. Great overall route right there. All right, guys, we want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I always appreciate the feedback, and obviously it's always great to hear from you guys. I always appreciate the suggestions for new videos. It helps me come up with ideas for the channel, so I always appreciate it. And again, fellas, if you want to come out and train with us in one of those 9 cities mentioned right here, Tampa, Houston, Phoenix, Newark, Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Nashville, and Los Angeles, you're local to that, want to make the trip out, spots are limited due to the interest that we've been getting on this camp, so we'd love to have you out there. We hope that the YouTube community can make it out. I'll see you guys next time.